All right, so let's get right into it. Deep in the middle of Homer's Iliad, nestled between a failed diplomatic mission and a massive bloody battle, sits a chapter that has baffled scholars for centuries. It's Book X, the Doloneia. It all takes place in the dead of night, and it's this strange, violent little story of espionage that just pops up out of nowhere.
So for years, the big question has been, is this chapter just some awkward later addition? Like some kind of ancient fan fiction? Or is it something way more clever? Could this one-night raid actually be the secret weapon of the entire epic? A moment that redefines heroism and foreshadows the very end of the Trojan War?
And you can totally see why people were suspicious, right? The Doloneia has all the signs of a later edition. The plot is totally self-contained, wraps up neatly by sunrise, and then boom, it's never mentioned again. Its main victims, you've got this Trojan spy Dolon and a Thracian king Rhesus. We meet them, and they're dead in the same chapter, gone. And the whole vibe of it, this focus on stealth and trickery, it just felt kind of dirty to some critics. Definitely not the usual, honorable sun-drenched duels the Iliad is famous for. But what if all that weirdness is the whole point? What if this chapter isn't a mistake at all? What if it's a deliberate shift in the rules of the game? It's here that Homer introduces a totally different kind of warfare, one that's not fought with brute force in the daylight, but with pure cunning in the shadows. This, right here, is the Poetics of Ambush. Okay, so here's the key thing to get. Most of the Iliad is all about polemos, that's open warfare. It's about visible strength, what the Greeks called BA, and you're doing it out in the open to earn fame or kleos. But Book X, it throws all that out and introduces us to lochos, the ambush. And this is a whole different world. It's a nighttime world where winning depends on stealth, on being practical, and on a totally different kind of heroic skill. And that skill, that virtue, is metis. Think of it as cunning intelligence. It's the ability to think on your feet, to plan, to deceive. You see, out on the bright, sunny battlefield, brute strength might be king. But in the total darkness of the Doloneia, metis is what keeps you alive. And, spoiler alert, it's the skill that's ultimately going to win the entire war. So, to survive in this new, darker kind of war, the heroes have to completely transform, psychologically. They can't just be soldiers anymore. They have to become predators of the night. And the poem shows us this in a really cool, literal way, by having them actually wear the skins of animals. This is a concept called sympathetic association. The idea is that the warriors aren't just wearing these animal skins for camouflage. No, they're trying to embody the animal spirit. So you've got Agamemnon and Diomedes in lion skins, right? That's all about royal fury and ferocity. Then you have the Trojan spy, Dolon, who wears a wolf skin, which kind of marks him as this sly lone wolf outlaw. And then you have Odysseus.
He's wearing a boar's tusk helmet, and this is just fascinating because it shows how deep the poem's historical roots go. This isn't some made-up fantasy helmet. Archaeologists have literally dug these exact helmets out of the ground at Mycenaean sites. It's a genuine artifact from the Bronze Age, like a fossil embedded right there in the text, connecting this mission to a real ancient time. And the boar itself? Fierce, tough, super cunning. Could there be a more perfect symbol for Odysseus?
So the whole chapter is basically structured as a tale of two competing spy missions, one Greek and one Trojan. But the way they go about it couldn't be more different. And that difference tells us everything about what the poem thinks about leadership and about community. Okay, check this out. The Greek mission is a total masterclass in what we could call the ethics of cooperation. It starts in a council meeting with a debate among equals. Diomedes volunteers, and then he specifically chooses Odysseus to be his partner. Why? Because he knows they need both brawn and brains, their motivation, the survival of their entire army. Now, contrast that with the Trojan mission. It's completely authoritarian. Hector just offers a huge bribe, Achilles' amazing horses, to any guy willing to go it alone. It's all about greed, not duty. And the guy who takes the bait? Dolon. Homer tells us right away he's of wicked form but swift-footed. Basically, ugly but fast. He's immediately set up as a nobody. He is the classic redshirt, a lone wolf, a mercenary, and his only motivation is getting those horses. The poem never pretends he's a hero on some noble quest. Nope, he's an expendable asset. And what happens to him feels less like a tragedy and more like a cold military calculation. So when these two missions finally collide in the dark, well, it's not a fair fight, not even close. Diomedes and Odysseus don't just overpower Dolon, they completely outthink him. They set a perfect trap, cutting off his escape route. Then Odysseus, the absolute master of metis, goes to work with psychological warfare, giving Dolon this tiny sliver of false hope to get him to talk. And boy, does he talk. Dolon spills everything. He betrays his entire army, giving up the location of every single unit, including the brand new arrivals, the Thracians and their king, Rhesus. And as soon as his usefulness is exhausted, the end is just swift and unbelievably brutal. Diomedes cuts his head off while he's still speaking. There's no ceremony here, no honor, no moment of warrior's rage. It's just the ruthless, cold efficiency of a mission, where information is the only thing that matters, and a human life is just the cost of getting it.
So with the intel they squeezed out of Dolon, the Greek heroes move on to Phase 2. They slip into the sleeping Thracian camp, and what follows is a silent, horrifying massacre. Diomedes kills 12 of King Rhesus's best men, and then, for his 13th victim, he kills the king himself. All of them slaughtered in their sleep.
So yeah, a self-contained night of pure slaughter. But this is not just some gruesome side story, you see. This is where we finally understand the Doloneia's true purpose. This one night serves as a kind of blueprint, and its echoes ripple forwards and backwards through the entire epic.
First off, it works as a critical narrative hinge. Think about it. Book 9 ends with the Greeks in absolute despair. Achilles has told them to get lost, and all hope seems gone. They're stuck. Book X breaks that paralysis. This aggressive, violent, and importantly, successful mission injects a shot of adrenaline right into the story, and it catapults us into the massive bloody battles of Book 11. It's literally the bridge from despair back to action.
But it also does something else really clever. It foreshadows the end of the entire war. You can think of the Doloneia as a kind of trial run. Later in the story, who teams up again for another night raid to steal the Palladium, that sacred statue protecting Troy? Yep, Odysseus and Diomedes. And the final victory, the thing that wins the war? It's not an open battle. It's the Trojan horse, the ultimate epic act of metis. The very tactics that were perfected here in Book X become the model for how Troy itself will finally fall.
And maybe the most powerful connection of all is this. The Iliad really has two major night journeys. The first is this one, right here in Book X, a mission of infiltration, slaughter, and theft. The second one comes at the very end, in Book 24, when the old Trojan king, Priam, sneaks into the Greek camp at night. But his mission, it's one of ransom, of humanity, of pure compassion, as he begs Achilles for his son's body. The Doloneia is like a dark mirror held up to that final beautiful act of grace. And that proves just how important this chapter is to the entire moral structure of the epic.
So, as you can see, the Doloneia is so much more than a simple side quest. It's a really complex look at the very nature of war. It makes us ask, what does it really mean to be a hero when just surviving is on the line? And it leaves us with this one final nagging question. In the end, what truly brings the walls of Troy tumbling down? Is it the heroic, sun-drenched valor of the battlefield, or the cold, calculated cunning that operates in the shadows?